This is my newest experiment. I'm going to call this one Eddie's Toy number 8. It's very much like Eddie's Toy number 7, which is right here, with the exception that the shaft is vertical instead of horizontal. And there are two thrust plates, one on the bottom and one on the top. The idea of that was so I could set the thrust to an absolute minimum, and it could change thrust very readily, thus keeping the friction to a minimum. When I first fire her up, she runs a little rough, but she'll get smooth. On this one here I have 8 magnets on the armature. They're 1/2 inch magnets, 1/4 inch thick with a 1/4 inch hole in them, and they're screwed on with little deck screws, 3/4 inch screws. Each magnet on the shaft is being repelled by 8 magnets surrounding it, holding the thing in place pretty darn good. The operation of the electronics is pretty much basically the same. Reed switch right here, energizing the transistor, which is firing the wire wound coil. That's pretty much all there is to the electronics. I'll fire her up. I'd like, if I can here, see what happens. There she goes. She starts kind of rough, as you can see. She's really starting to sing. Okay. Now the object of the two thrust plates was so it would change thrust ends. When I could get it to change thrust ends very readily, that means I had very little friction. Right now, if you look at the bottom one here, you can see it's not riding on the bottom at all. Go up to the top one, run this thin piece of paper underneath of it, and now it's riding on the bottom one. Run under. Now it hopped up to the top one. So all it takes is the thickness of this little thin piece of paper to cause it to switch ends. Hanging from the top, sitting on the bottom. That was my whole object in this little experiment, was to try and get it so it was just barely thrusting in either direction. If I thrust it up, a very slight touch on the top here will thrust it down. And that's about it. Runs quite well. Just a little experiment. I would sure like to be able to build one with no thrust plates. Haven't been able to do that so far. Well, that's about it, folks.